Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Matchbook Horse Racing podcast. This is Horses to Follow for the National Hunt Season 23-24, Round 2. We've had Round 1. That's had plenty of views on social media. Thank you for that. Thank you for your support on that one. And plenty of horses have gone up. We've got some crossover in this one, but plenty of new horses as well. And the Insights column will be up later on. The Insights column for Round 1 is up already. Joined by Mr. Cheltenham himself, Matchbook's Jump Trends expert, Matt Toombs. Home of Rix's ratings, Declan Rix. He's back. I'm going to start with you. And Steve Jones having his 201st Matchbook podcast. We've started something now. It's an absolute nonsense. I'm not even going to read out what the producer's written under my name because that's just, that's how I get all my work. Anything that Nick Luck can't do, but there you are. But if you're watching, hi, everyone. We've got a lot to get through. We're going to be taking in the same format as before. So that is a future star who everyone will be familiar with, not necessarily right at the top of the table, but somebody who can develop into a future star. We've got some novices for you, some dark horses, and then any other horses, maybe some handicappers in there and the like. Don't forget, if you like our content, that is across all sports, like and subscribe. It is the best no-cost way of supporting our podcast because it means you can digest everything we put up there easily, and it helps us as well. Rixie, welcome back. It's been such a long time, and quite frankly, I've missed you. We all have. How are you?
You weren't saying that before the show started. I was getting pelters, but yeah, no, it's good to be back. Great to see the boys here. As they say, the band are back together.
They really are. Jonesy, how are you? You're like the George Baker when he was riding, because people said he was always available, and you are. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. Yeah, not as good as you, Tommy. Put a 25-1 winner at the weekend on the Matchbook podcast. So we were all cheering that one home, and just got up on the line. I was very impressed.
Thanks for bringing that up, Steve. It means a lot to me.
And
I also laid in Spiral. Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace. But yes, we had a good weekend on the podcast last week.
But we laid that hot favourite in the sales race. Whose name escapes me.
Zulu Chief.
Zulu Chief.
Yeah. So and Toomsy's back. This is your time. Your time of year. What have you been doing during the summer, Matt?
It's the first summer for years. I haven't had a book of one description or other to write. So I've been doing a whole load of research on the big races during the winter about what sort of trials they are for Cheltenham and for which races, with some surprising results. So hopefully get a chance to talk a bit about that as the season progresses.
I really want you to just give me a snippet, give me a teaser. Is there anything that springs to mind as a bit of an outlier on that front, or not? You don't have to.
Yeah, or say a race like the Hatton's Grace Hurdle, 2.5 mile Grade 1 at Fairy House, and often run on soft ground. So people tend to think it's a stayers hurdle trial. But actually, Fairy House, very sharp track, they go quickly. And 4 of the 6 winners of that have lined up in the Champion Hurdle this century have won. 6 in total have won the Champion Hurdle. 30 odd of them, including 9 winners, have lined up in the Stayers Hurdle, and only Cider Burley's won. He couldn't go the gallop at all at Fairy House. So it's races like that which are sometimes a bit misunderstood, and that you can get a bit of an anti-post angle sometimes.
Oh, I am so up for the jump season. Here we go. I love that. Good. Right. Let's go to Future Stars. There we go. We got there in the end. Future Stars. Okay. Rixie, because it's been such a while, your future star, who won the Supreme last year, you think he's going to hit the heights over fences, do you?
Yes, absolutely. I hope so. We should be changing that graphic for a start. It's his name's not Marine National, it's Machine National. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this guy. I thought he was a brilliant winner of the Supreme. I think no matter, very much a bit like Constitution Hill, although not in the same bracket, albeit. I think no matter what way you break down the Supreme this year, it looks a top-class race. You know, he beat Facile Vega by 3 1/4 lengths, did it pretty easily, I thought, as well. And then his time, I think the time was only about just under 2 lengths slower than Constitution Hill, although Constitution Hill did carry 3 pounds more in a champion hurdle. So I think no matter kind of collateral form, visuals, and the time. You know, I think he's a proper horse, and out of all the kind of the novice hurdle winners at the festival this year, for me, he was the most impressive. I thought in terms of numbers and ratings, he was better than Impere Pass, although he's obviously another exciting horse. But I just love this horse. It sounds now like he's going to go novice chasing this year. And I thought there were good signs for him going chasing in the Supreme. I thought he showed good versatility, both in terms of he was quite airy in some of his jumps, but he also showed he had scope and he also had quick feet. So I think that kind of bodes well for him taking to fences. He didn't run in a point-to-point, but he did come from a point-to-point yard. He came from the Sam Curling Academy. A man obviously last year trained Angels Dawn to in the Kim Muir. But Sam has had horses like Longhouse Poet, Vanillier, and Summerhill Boy through his hands. So he knows how to, he can spot a good young horse before they come through. And, Barry Connell says Marine Nationale is going to be as good, if not even better, over fences this year, which bodes well. And to be fair to Barry, he told us all about this horse from the moment the season kicked off last season. He has not got this horse wrong at all. So, yes, the future star for me, and the graphics being updated, what a show, is Machine Nationale.
Okay, Marine Nationale for Barry Connell to go novice chasing. What? Just confirm what you think his trip is ultimately going to be.
Oh, he's 2-miler. Yeah, out now 2-miler.
Arkle, Bosch.
Yeah, Arkle, because they've already got Goodland for the intermediate.
And Goodland went up in 2 separate places on last week's podcast. I'm going to jump in now because I was going to put up Al Fabiolo, but Matt Toombs has done that and he can make a stronger case for that horse. I've gone with my Racing TV horse to follow, who is Hermes Allen. Now, I wasn't sure whether to put him in the Future Stars category. I could have put him in the Novice Chaser category, but my Novice Chaser is sort of a lesser light than Hermes Allen. So I guess he's my future star, who I think might come up short at the spring festivals. But he's going to win. I think he'll beat Everything British over 3 miles en route to the festivals. He's that sort of, he fits into the bill of the Paul Nicholls horse who can't quite cut it against the Irish at the very top level over an intermediate trip as a hurdler. But he should really come into his own as a chaser next year. There was a line, Matt, you said about him last year, which stuck with me, about Nicholls and how he approaches the festival with horses like him. Not undercooked. What was your feeling about it?
Just a bit soft trained as novice hurdlers. They're there for the experience, the brave man's game in the same race. And then as novice chasers, sometimes he likes to miss the Broadway, go to Aintree, and the idea is that their horses like Hermes Allen will be winning King George's for the next 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, so he fits that. I mean, I don't want to make direct comparisons to Denman, but probably more of a brave man's game anyway. But those type of horses who just come up short in the intermediate trip novice hurdle, but then kick on as staying chasers. That performance, when he was probably on the better part of the track in the Challow, form that is very, very strong from last year. But he was just so good that day. He absolutely hammered them. And then, yeah, he was disappointing at the festival. He was hammered in the betting that day. It was a weird one. And also virtually every other Nicholls horse, tour horse, performed at the festival, and he was the one outlier. And then he came back and ran okay at Aintree when he was placed. But he's just a horse who should be an out-and-out chaser. And I think staying chaser, even though the suggestion is going to start off over 2.5. So Hermes Allen is my future star. The one caveat is that I think he might still come up short if he went to the Cheltenham Festival, but he can win a couple of grade ones en route to that. Steve Jones.
Yeah, mine's a little bit different because he probably is dark horse to some people because he's trained in France and he's called Il Francais, and he's trained by Tom George's son Noel and in partnership with Amanda Zetterholm. And that since they teamed up with a joint license in March, they've already gone through the £1 million euro barrier. And Il Francais is their best horse. And I don't think Noel will be able to resist coming over at some point, probably at Christmas for something like the Quarto Star chase in Kempton. And what he's done so far in France has been incredibly impressive. It was Grade 1 winner over hurdles, dual Grade 3 winner over hurdles, and made a stunning chase debut last time over the big stuff at Auteuil. He's got everything, this horse. He cruises round, he jumps beautifully, and if he comes over at Kempton on Boxing Day in a race which is quite often... the Irish don't come over very often with their top horses, so it can be very winnable. And if he does come over, they won't be able to see which way he went, I don't think.
Okay. Is there a website you can watch his replays on, Jonesy?
Sorry?
Is there a website you can watch his replays on?
Yeah, France Gallop, but maybe at the races as well.
While we're on this subject, Steve Jones, you have 45 seconds to tell us about your new French venture. Go.
Oh, well, yeah, I've got a syndicate that is the horses are trained by Noel and Amanda. We've had one runner already, Liggett's Hill, who was desperately unlucky at Auteuil. She should have won, but she didn't. But that's a good starting point. And we've got a horse that we got from Dan Skelton called Eclair Dane, who's due to run 2 weeks last Sunday. So a week on Sunday at Lyon. So still got shares in both horses, but they're going fast and building a bit of momentum. The great thing with France is great prize money, great experience, trained in Chantilly, beautiful area, come over on the break, and hopefully we'll win your money back with the right horses.
What's the syndicate?
What's the French for Ponzi scheme? It's not one of those syndicates now, is it?
Sorry, I can't understand what you're saying, Rixie. You'll have to speak in a French accent. www.provenceracing.com. Check it out.
There you go. Ponzi Racing, provenceracing.com. Good stuff.
But follow Ile Francais regardless, because he is top notch.
El Fabiolo, Matt. He is already a star, but why, for your money, is he a future chasing superstar in Oaten Company? Is he just better than an Energumen and he beats him every which way?
I think he is. I don't have a strong view on the other three divisions, but I really think he's the champion chaser in waiting. As is often the case, this specialist division looks shallow. His form in thrashing the subsequent novice Grade 1 winner Banbridge 10 lengths in the Irish Arkle, and then subsequent Open Grade 1 winner John Bon by 5.5 lengths in what was a strong-looking Arkle, marks him out as one of the best 2-mile chasers as novices this century. He got a Racing Post rating of 172 in the Arkle. This century, that's only behind the great sprinter Sacre, 176, and Shishkin is 175. It's hard to give a high rating accurately when they're beating a weak field like he was. John Bon went up to 170 when winning the Celebration Chase. Although he'd have enjoyed the better ground there, even allowing for that, to me, El Fabiolo's form already looks good enough to win plenty of recent champion chases. The Arkle's been a great guide. The stat is that Arkle winners this century, 7 from 13 in the next season's champion chase, 164% profit backing Debit SP. Punches down, he showed the ground that, officially at least, was quicker, good to yielding, holds no fears, bolted up again. Still a bit novice-y at his fences last season, and after just 4 starts over fences, you'd hope he has natural improvement to come as he gets slicker at his obstacles. And he's going to be 7 in March, and Energumen's going to be 10. So a lot of respect for the dual champion chase. He's a classy horse, but those 2 renewals he's won have fallen apart on bad ground. He's beaten Captain Guinness, who's 0 from 10 in Grade 1s over fences, and Fernando Savolo's 0 from 7 in Grade 1s. I'm still not convinced that the turning left-handed track would suit an Energumen ideally if there were decent ground and he faced a genuine champion chase level opponent who turns up on the day, like in the Clarence House. I think he'd be vulnerable. El Fabiolo's 2.75 for the champion chase. So for most punters, that's not an attractive anti-post proposition, albeit he could be odds on come the day. But looking at it from a racing point of view, rather than a pure betting point of view, he looks a real star in the making, the best 2-mile novice chaser for some time. And if you're doing the potentially life-changing ACCAs this autumn, El Fabiolo would be my suggested anchor leg.
Any chance that they run against each other? Try again, because we're coming on to Facile Vega. El Fabiolo and Energumen before Cheltenham or not?
I wouldn't have thought so. One will go to the Hilly Way, one will go to the Tingle Creek. I should think El Fabiolo will take in the 2 Leopardstown races so that Energumen can go right-handed at Ascot and the Clarence House. That would be my guess.
Okay. The last two champion chases, Energumen has been absolutely hammered in the betting, and the two anti-post favourites for the race have basically pulled up. It's a weird one, but let's hope it doesn't happen again this year and we get a proper match up and a proper race. Okay, that's our future stars section done. We have had a question from Tissue Prices. Where will Facile Vega be aimed at? I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that Ruby Walsh's Racing TV horse to follow was Facile Vega this year. He says he's lost absolutely no faith in him. He'll come of age this season. Where? He's going chasing, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Argyle division looks really thin beyond him and Marine Nationale. That might be that Willie's got some French imports we've never heard of that will go straight chasing, and therefore you're into Mullins bingo. And Facile Vega could certainly step up in trip. But at the moment, it looks a very winnable race. I can understand why Rixie likes Marine Nationale so much.
He's not going to scare you, Facile Vega, over 2 miles against Marine Nationale, Rixie, is he?
No, absolutely not. He murdered him at Cheltenham, I thought. Despite getting a bad bulk as well at the last hurdle, if I remember correctly. And the other thing I didn't mention with Marine Nationale, we keep getting told about him, just about handling soft ground. We haven't seen this fella on some decent spring ground, which could even utilize his class and his pace even more. So, especially if they're going to clash at tracks like Leopardstown, which are very free training, and that's where obviously the Irish Arkle is.
All right, Steve, over to you then with your novice horses. You could take it away with your hurdler and chaser in whichever order you wish.
Well, there's a theme running through my selections because they're all from stables that I think are going to do well and are on the up. The first one is Iroko. And Iroko, my machine's going to make a noise now. Iroko won the Martin Pipe hurdle at Cheltenham on just the, I think, 5th start in Britain. Having come over from France, owned by JP McManus, trained by Oliver Greenwell and Josh Guerrero, so I think is a yard that is done really well, building up both the quality and the quantity there, and then was third at Aintree behind Apple Away off the back of that hard run at Cheltenham, and it was an impressive run at Cheltenham. I thought he did really well that day, and when you consider the recent winners of the Martin Pipe, like Galopin de Champs obviously won it, but Sir de Champs also one of those top horses have come out of it, and I think and before that was the Grade 1 winner over fences last year, whose name escapes me, but oh god, that'll bug me now. But it's kind of got as much of a pedigree for throwing up top class horses, the Martin Pipe, than some of the other novice races, considering it's only a handicap. And Iroko, to me, it smacks of a stayer. So the fact that he could win over 2.5 in a race as competitive as that is excellent. He saw the distance out of 3 miles at Aintree really well. And to me, he looks ideal for maybe the National Hunt Chase, but something like the Scottish National later in the season might be just what he wants. I think he's a real stayer, this horse. So that's my chaser is Iroko. My novice hurdler is Dysart Enos, another trainer who I know he's been in fantastic form for the last 2 or 3 years, Fergal O'Brien, but he now has the task. He's very much in a position that Dan Skelton was in a few years ago, where he was having the numbers, but the task now is to up the quality. And I think Dysart Enos is the one to do that. And she won the Mayor's Bumper at Aintree, and she won it in great style. Before that, she'd beaten Queen's Gamble, who some people seem to think was unbeatable in those sort of races. And she beat her at Market Raisin, and then thrashed the field at Aintree. I saw her the other day at Fergal's. She looked fantastic. She's a really big, strong mare, and I think she's going to do really well. I think she was in Exeter this Thursday. I'm not sure whether she's been declared, but I'd imagine that she wants a bit of softer ground than she's likely to get in the near future. So, yeah, I think Dysart Enos is going to be the horse this season that can take Fergal O'Brien to the Grade 1s.
Okay, those are Steve's 2. They'll be up on Insights after this. Novice Chaser Iroko, Novice Hurdler Dysart Enos. Rixie.
I'll start with the novice hurdler. I'm going to put up a horse called Willmount. A horse was trained by Neil Mulholland last season, and for some reason I don't know why he's actually moved to Nicky Henderson's this year. A shame for Neil, because I think Neil actually bought him for 340,000 at the sales. So unfortunate for Neil there. Obviously, I don't know what's gone on, but
it's the owner Rix. He's moved both. He had 2 horses with Neil, and he's moved both of them.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Both to Nicky. I don't know why.
Okay, cool. I just think Willmont's a nice horse. You know, there's lots to like about him. Obviously, the price tag says plenty. He was bought for 340,000. He's by Blue Brezel, who's obviously the sire of Constitution Hill, Blue Lord, Royal Pagaille, and he's out of an old Vic mare, which suggests that I think he'll have no problem in at least getting 2.5 this season. He's unbeaten in 3 starts. I won an Irish point to point. And the horse that he beat in the Irish point to point, Shannon Rhodes, I think, is a horse with Rob Cornell at the moment. Willmont made his debut at Doncaster, put up a really likeable performance. Just has a lovely way of going, pricking his ears. Still kind of quite green, but when the pace was lifting, and you can go on to athraces.com and look at the sectional data, even when the pace was lifting, he seemed to be doing it all within himself. The sign of a good horse. And then he got one crack late by Jamie Moore, and he took off again, something you like to see. And then second time out, he went back to Donny again and made the running. He was kept up to his work to beat a horse of Alan King's, who was nibbled at in the market. But the combination of Willmont carrying a penalty and the Alan King horse having a claimer on him meant he had to give him £22. So although visually he didn't probably make the same impression, to give a horse like that £22 he was nibbled at in the market for Alan King, who I think was enjoying a decent spill and bumpers in around the time, I thought was a good performance. So yeah, the novice hurdler for me will be Willmont this season. And then the chaser, we've already got a little bit of a mention. It's going to be Goodland. He was another good hurdler last season for Barry Connell and his team. And to be fair, they spoke about this guy in glowing terms as well for much part of the year, although not quite in the same breath as Marine Nationale. Look, he impressed me. I thought to go from winning a maiden hurdle to winning the Grade 1 Nathaniel Lacey on just his 4th proper career start. I actually think it was his 5th, but remember I think he unseated early in a race at Ferryhouse early in the season, so he didn't actually have a run there. Look, he's just got such a lovely way of going, this guy. He's a lovely, big, robust type kind of chaser, and he covers a lot of ground. So I think kind of making plenty of use of him and riding him positive suits him. Look, we mentioned Rixie's ratings there. And sorry to refer to myself in nearly third person, but I had him running to 142p in the Nathaniel Lacey, and then I had him running to a similar level in the Ballymore when he was well beaten by Impere Pass. But subsequently, his bloods came back terrible, supposedly, after the race. And, they reckon he picked up a virus over there. So to still run to that kind of level in a Grade 1 race at the Cheltenham Festival suggests to me that we haven't even come close to seeing what's under the bonnet in this guy. He now, like in Marine Nationale, he goes novice chasing, and he's got the size and the scope to be a big player in that division. And I spoke to Michael O'Sullivan earlier in the week. He's going to be his horse to follow this year, and supposedly his schooling, to quote Michael, he said his schooling has been mustered. So yes, the novice chaser to me this season will be Goodland.
Lovely stuff. The other horse, incidentally, was Break My Soul, who Neil Mulholland paid 290 grand for, hasn't raced yet, unbeaten point winner, and he's gone to Nicky Henderson as well for Ollie Harris, just FYI. Matt, who are your novices?
My novice chaser is Apple Away. Thought it was a strong-looking 3-mile novice hurdle division last season. Always a bit cautious about post-Cheltenham form, especially over staying trips, but I suspect that the Punchestown race won by Gaelic Warrior and Sefton are going to stand up a bit better than they sometimes do. And Appleway's got a much lower profile than Gaelic Warrior, typical Lucinda Russell embryonic chaser in a novice hurdle season. She's given plenty of racecourse experience to learn her trade, started at Bangor in September. Sefton was her 7th run. Brought along slowly without pushing buttons early on. Her RPRs are 100, 102, 105, 115, 122, 129, and then 143. For conditions races, you can add 7 to those numbers to compare them to the geldings forms. So she was really progressive. In the Sefton, she beat Maximilian a length and 3/4. She beat Stay Away Fay in the River Dom, but as is often the case with the McCain horses, bypassed Cheltenham Braintree. The excellent Martin Pipe winner, so you talked about Iroko, was in 3rd, Stay Away Fay in 4th. So did they run their races? At least they were travelling well. Often, if they've had a hard race at Cheltenham, you don't see them travelling the first half of the race. But both those two did, Iroko and Stay Away Fay, better than Maximilian, actually. So they may have run their races. And if they did, Apple Away looked really good. She travels well. She's uncomplicated. She looks the type you can let down a fair way out and run the finish out of the opposition. So from the trends point of view, with so many of the best horses with Mullins and Henderson who bring their horses out later, and as we mentioned, Nichols often bypassing the Broadway for Aintree, the old trends that there was a big advantage of lots of chasing experience over a long season in the Broadway have broken down a bit. No point looking at horses that have had 5 or more chase starts beginning in October if they're 20 pounds inferior to the Mullins Hot Pot, who didn't come out till December. But that shouldn't disguise the fact if you have got a Broadway level horse, that being battle hardened over fences from a long season with plenty of runs is still an advantage. And Lucinda is likely to get plenty of experience into Apple Away, been entered a couple of times already over fences, hasn't run yet. And there's no obvious star in this division. It's 13.0 of the field at the moment. So 26.0 about her for the Broadway looks attractive, especially given she's in such good hands. And novice hurdler is Captain Teague. I thought last season's bumper horses were a substandard crop. There was a heartwarming story of a dream to share, but distinct lack of stardust, also vibes, especially from the Mullins camp during the season. And with so few horses coming off the flat now, then if the bump horses were weak, could be a season where the novice hurdle divisions are quite open, but very much one for the future, Captain Teague. Rare runner in the bumper for Paul Nicholls. The pair that finished in front of him had a good experience advantage, having contested the Grade 2 bumper at DRF, and it showed. Captain Teague going on the worst of the ground, the far side, without a rail to help, looked really green when asked to go about his business, going right, going there, left. He was only beaten 2.5 lengths. He was then roughed off for the summer. And the stat is that this century, the previous champion bumpers produced 5 winners of each of the Supreme and the Ballymore, all 10 of which finished in the first 6 in the bumper. So in theory, that's a positive. But again, we're going back to what we discussed earlier about how Paul Nicholls campaigns his good horses. Since he inherited Alpha off a few weeks before the 2010 renewal, he'd only had a couple of runners in the bumper before Captain Teague. So often he might bypass the big festivals or run them soft trained. So whether Captain Teague's this season's festival horse, I'm not sure. It'll be listening to the vibes from Paul Nicholls as the season progresses. Is he going to hard train because he thinks he can win a festival novice hurdle? Or will it be more like the Hermes Allen Brave Man's Game, where the future of chasing in mind? He might run in the Persian War on Friday if there's enough cut in the ground. Only 3 horses since that was moved to the autumn in 2000 have won that in the hurdling debut. And they're good horses, Time Hill, Fingal Bay, Ballyhenry. So Captain Teague could be good enough to be the 4th. But whatever the plans in the spring, I think he looks a standout horse to follow in the novice hurdling division over the winter.
And I can take Captain Teague out of my any other horses because he was in there. The only thing I'd add is that Nicholls said the Persian War, and he feels he's a Challow horse as well, which they have a ridiculously good record in. So I'll take him out of there. My 2 novices to follow are, first of all, Gidley Park. Gidley Park is a once racehorse for Harry Fry. Both my novices are walking the parks. Incidentally, Gidley Park beat the Jukebox Man at Chepstow comfortably on soft ground. Soft ground may be important to him. He's from the family of Denman. He looks a future stayer in the making. He could potentially be one of those horses that, you know, is a decent novice hurdler, but he is a future chaser. But I suppose most novice hurdlers are, aren't they? But Harry Fry had a good season last season, particularly with his bumper horses, and this was one of the most impressive of them. Probably, I thought the standout horse that he sent out last year, and I think he'll develop into a 2.5/3 mile novice hurdler this year. He's had some good intermediate trip novice hurdlers, Harry Fry, and I think that this could be another one of them. So that's Gidley Park, who is 1 from 1. The chaser is Giovinco for Lucinda Russell, who Lucinda, actually, I noted a quote down after Carlisle. She said, Giovinco is our future. He's a lovely, lovely horse. He's, like all of the Russell's good horses in the past, a former point horse. He's unbeaten so far, having looked, in particular, I thought, very good at Carlisle when a 2's on shot, but then bolted up at Perth at the end of April. He's mixed it up on a variety of grounds so far, and I think he'll follow in the footsteps of the likes of a Hoy Signor. I think he'll be aimed at those sorts of races. Hopefully he's the next that type of horse. I mean, there's lots of stamina in there. Whether or not he can develop into a Grand National type of horse, I don't know. He's from the family of Rocky Creek, who I had a ridiculous soft spot for. Rocky Creek. He would have won the Gold Cup that year, but he didn't run in it. Never mind. Matt Toombs remembers that, don't you? I was all over Rocky Creek, and then he got ringworm. It was a crap Gold Cup as well. Did Lord Windermere win it that year?
Oh, he'd won about 10 lengths, mate.
Gutted. Anyway, I'm over it. Giovinco looks the perfect type of horse that Lucinda Russell can excel with. I don't know. They're going to have to look for races a bit further south, because there aren't many in the early part of the year that really good novice chasers up north. There's the intermediate one at Carlisle, isn't there? There's the Toten that he could go to at some point, which I think a Hoy Signor won. But yeah, I think he could easily be a grade 1 3-mile novice chaser for the festival. Giovinco. All right. We move on to dark horses. We've got a couple here from Steve and Rixie, first of all. Rixie, your 2 dark horses, sir.
I suppose the main one would be Clovis Island, a horse trained by Nicky Richards and kind of due to be ridden by, I imagine, Sean Quinlan this year. He's only had 2 starts, one in an Irish point-to-point and another in Bumper at Hexham in March last season. I really liked the performance at Hexham. Or in the early part of the race, he was kept honest by another rival, a little bit of pace pressure, but again, he seemed to do it all with it in himself. And I thought he actually travelled stronger as the race went on. He was the horse that finished runner-up is actually a horse called Fox's Fancy, trained by Lucinda Russell, who I think is a half brother to One for Arthur and a couple of other horses, and he was backed in the race. So I thought, given the pace pressure and the runner-up was held up in the rear, and to give him £7, I thought was a pretty big performance. Now, kind of, I think Connections before the race were quite worried about him because he was such a weak and backward kind of horse. They were worried about running him at a stiff track on heavy ground at Hexham, but they wanted to get some experience into him before they put him away. So I thought under all of that, I thought to win as well as he did, it just was a good sign of the raw ability that this horse has. He's actually a half brother to last season's Supreme Fourth and Aintree Grade 1 winner in the pocket. So he's got a decent pedigree as well. And, I think he's bred by some people in Tessa Greatrix. I think David Futter, who are, I think anyone that works in the national hunt game and the breeding scene, those are 2 very respected names. So, yeah, Clovis Island for the Nicky Richard team. He'll be one for me. And then the other one is actually going to be a 5-year-old mare trained by Liam Kenny. Now, this, look, as we know in Ireland, unless your name is Mullins to Bromhead, Elliott, etc., it really is tough for these kind of trainers to mix it. But I just thought World of Fortunes was a 5-year-old mare to keep an eye on. I thought she should have won on debut at Tipperary back in April. She was beaten the nose by a Willie Mullins horse called 4 Clean Aces. It was a very good run. I think another couple of strides and she was definitely going to be up. But then on her second start, she went to Wexford, where I think is quite local to the trainer, and she absolutely bolted up. So she's probably one to keep an eye on for a trainer who doesn't have the kind of name as some of those big guns in Ireland. She's also got a decent pedigree. She's by Soldier of Fortune, and the dam is related to, remember that good chaser of Nicky Henderson's Master of the Hall, and another Willie Mullins horse called Pair of Brown Eyes. So the pedigree's decent as well. And I think if you even go back further into the family, I think Sam Crow's in there as well. So World of Fortunes was a mare to keep an eye on. I'm assuming she's going to go chasing this year. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on her and hope that she can mix it with some of the big boys.
Okay, Matt, over to you.
My dark horse is Monty Star. When looking at novice chase, particularly important factor in training methods, how much a yard's horses tend to improve or not for going chasing. And at the top end, nobody's horses improve more than Henry de Bromhead's. When he has a chasing type, Henry doesn't mess around long in bumpers or over hurdles. Often doesn't even run embryonic chasers in bumpers. The education to be a racehorse is done over hurdles. And as usually, has some exciting prospects to go to war with this year. Monty Star's a big chasing type. He looked very raw last season. After fair runs in a bumper and a 2.5 maiden hurdle, stepped up to 3 miles for the Grade 3 novice at Clonmel in mid-February. Beat Hidden Valley Lake half a length there, despite looking really green. And although he was getting £6, he looked the one to take out of the race. Never featured in the Albert Bartlett, but that 20-runner race was a huge ask for a big backward horse. I'm always forgiving of a horse not taking to that race. 6 of the last 14 Broadways have been won by runners from the previous year's Albert Bartlett, 2 of which, Boston's Angel and Black Lion, were like Monty Star pulled up in the Bartlett. So he's a big horse, unsurprisingly likes to get his toe in, and traditionally that would make him a risky anti-post proposition for a race like the Broadway. But now there's so much autumn watering done on the old course, unless we get a very dry run up to the festival, testing grounds become the norm on the first 2 days, started on soft or worse for 5 of the last 6 years. So I mentioned it was 13.0, the field in the Broadway anti-post. There's no obvious star. I wouldn't put anyone off having a few coins on Monty Star at 51.0. But as a jumper to follow, he looks made for races like the 3 mile 1 Grade 3 at Nace in January and the 10 up at Navan in February, where he should get lots of cut in the ground.
All right, my dark horse is Sergino. I want to thank One Jump Ahead, Mark Howard's One Jump Ahead for this. This was one of the most interesting things that jumped out of the book. It's an excellent book, by the way, well worth getting your hands on. One Jump Ahead. The Donnellys have purchased this horse after running in the pre-Wild Monarch, which takes place each April in France. It's a race which they bought State Man out of when I think he finished second. Salvatore Mundi and Sergino both ran in that contest. To be honest, I could have gone for either of them, but I just went with the horse that won it. So they have purchased Sergino and Salvatore Mundi out of the race. Salvatore Mundi has gone to Mullins and Sergino has gone to Nicky Henderson. I don't think I don't think as owners they've won the Triumph, but they've had a few arrows at it before. But this race in the past has produced the likes of Footpad. I mentioned State Man, Gaelic Warrior came out of it. And Henderson's obviously got not such a great recent record in the race, but he's won it a handful of times. So I'm hoping that both the horses go on to feature in a Triumph. And the reason I went with Sergino is because he finished ahead of Salvatore Mundi. But realistically, I could have put either of them up. But I thought they were interesting because the Donnellys are going back down that same path they trod with State Man, buying a horse out of the race, and they bought the horses that finished first and second. The form is very good this year as well. The front 2 pulled a long way clear. The third has come out and bolted up since, and it's produced another couple of winners as well. So Sergino, but also a strong mention for Salvatore Mundi. In fact, I might just add that to the document insight, so you've got both horses written down in front of you. Steve Jones.
Yeah, 2 that are unraced bar Irish points from yards again that I think are on the up and doing well. First one, Ben Pauling. I think Ben, the season he had last year, I think it was 80 winners or so. He's got the potential to this season or next become a top 5 trainer. I think now he moved yards last year. He's opposite Nigel Twiston Davis, the other side of the valley now in Naunton on a golf club that he's transforming into a pretty impressive sight. And Leader in the Park is a horse that's joined him, having won an Irish point-to-point by 56 lengths. Now, that totally flatters him because there was a couple of horses in contention when he fell. But my spies tell me that everything that Leader in the Park's been doing has been very impressive, and he could be a very exciting horse for a yard that is certainly going places in for Ben Pauling. The other one is David's Well, who didn't win an Irish point-to-point, but he ran third on his most recent one. He had run in 2. He unseated on his first start and then was third last time. And he has joined Chris Gordon, and I don't know a huge amount about him, but Chris Gordon, live from Winchester, tells me that this is one of his most exciting horses. So I'm going to follow him. And Chris he's had a really good season. He's progressing all the time, and I think he's a really good trainer. Always places his horses very well, and he's upping the quality as well. And hopefully David's Well, if he's right, will be part of that increase in quality. So yeah, Leader in the Park and David's Well.
All right, keep your questions coming in. We've had a good few, and we will answer those at the end, including Trevor, the handicappers lurking. So keep your ears and eyes out for that. We've got any other horses now. In fact, I'll come in with a handicapper off the back of that, which is Immortal. Immortal has run twice. I happened to be there at Sandown both times, so I'm probably conditioned by that. But I remember when he walked in the paddock on the 3rd of December, he looked a proper horse. That was in the race that Constitution Hill had won on debut. So, yes, there was a bit of buzz about that. Nicky Henderson unleashing another horse. He finished behind Authorised Speed, who couldn't jump for Toffee, but he still finished second to Authorised Speed, who's a quality horse, rated mid-130s. He then had wind surgery. Apparently, he made a noise that day. He ran in February with a tongue tie on and bumped into another Gary Moore horse, Gavega, again rated mid-130s. He was disappointing. He was sent off 1.91 that day. But he's been given a mark of 110. So he's got to sort his wind issues out, definitely. But I'm convinced that he can win a race off this sort of mark. And hopefully progress over in the 2 mile hurdle division this season. Nicky Henderson's good with these types of horses. I mean, you know, he's got a long way to go to make it into a sort of Jerry Fielden type horse and rise up the ratings. But I think as long as he's sorted out his wind issues, which is a slight concern, he's definitely better than 110. He certainly looked it when he walked in the paddock at Sandown. So he would be one of the horses I want to follow. And then the other one is Florida Dreams and also Bowens Park. Let me just get their page up. Who they ran in the same bumper at the back end of last season. So I originally had Florida Dreams down, and then I remembered Bowens Park as a future chaser. So this was at Aintree in the Grade 2 bumper. Florida Dreams won that day. He looked a really nice horse, 2 from 2 in bumpers, and should be a really nice novice hurdler going forward this season. I think he's probably a little bit sharper. He's got flat horses in his pedigree than the eventual 4th that day, Bowens Park. I think it was a good division. I think these two can, well, certainly Florida Dreams for Nicky Richards can win some good races up north this season. And then Bowens Park, Henry Daly, I can't remember that. It was Hillcrest. I think this horse could fit a similar sort of mould to Hillcrest. He's a bigger sort. He's more of a staying chase type. But I think he can definitely cut it against some smart novice hurdlers over intermediate and staying distances this season, Bowens Park. I think that's a good bumper. And I think Florida Dreams and Bowens Park should be 2 nice horses to go forward with. Rixie, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick mention to 2 horses, both actually sons of Marler. One of them will be quite obvious, but I just wanted to give him a mention. But I'll start with Attica, a horse trained by Nicky Henderson, son of Marler out of the King's Theatre mare. I think he's probably going to be, he's bred to be a good stayer in the making. I just had a really likeable way of going last year. I thought he kind of achieved plenty in 3 runs, given, you know, he was 4 going on 5. Started the season with a win at Kempton. And then his second start, he beat Master Chewy of the Nigel Twist and Davis yard, giving him £6 at Cheltenham, which I thought was a big performance. And then obviously Master Chewy, if I remember correctly, was a massive gamble in the Betfair hurdle, wasn't he, on the day? Didn't come to fruition, but the form looks pretty solid. He did kind of end the season on a bit of a downer. He was beaten at Ascot in February by Springwell Bay and Persian Time, 2 nice horses, but again he carried a penalty. He was beaten at even money, beaten 10 lengths, but he didn't run since, which suggests to me that maybe kind of something wasn't right. So, he's a young horse, as I say, still a 5-year-old, going to be 6 come the turn of the year. I think his best days are still ahead of him. Trained by Nicky Henderson, obviously a top-class operator, and owned by Patricia Pugh, obviously of Altior fame, who I think if you go further back enough into the pedigree, he's on the page as well. And I could not give the Real Whacker a good mention before we finished. Trained by Patrick Neville. I'm hoping it's going to be a case of, he's going to be underestimated in the market, this horse, just because of the guy who trains him. I thought this horse was just seriously impressive last season. He really was. He essentially had 3 starts over chases, won at Cheltenham on the old course, won at Cheltenham on the new course, and then obviously won the Brown Advisory, beating Jerry Field and Jerry Colomb, sorry, he beat. And he beat him well. Now, Jerry Colomb obviously went on to frank the form. But I would argue that the Real Whacker was idling pretty badly as well as maybe getting a little bit tired. I think people are just going to assume that Jerry Colomb is going to be a much better horse than him this season. I would not like to go to read that situation yet, because I thought he was value for kind of the short head for all. Jerry Colomb was finishing very strongly. Look, this horse is all legs. Physically, he just has to be better again this season. He's blessed with an awful lot of pace, and I actually think it was pace and class that won him the Brown Advisory against Jerry Colomb, because he was a horse who had his revs up in various stages because he couldn't go the gallop. Maybe he couldn't go the gallop, and a combination of still being quite raw and green. But the Real Whacker is a real horse. He's one to keep on side. He jumps for fun. As I said, physically, he's going to get better. He does have a little bit of a habit of jumping to his right and adjusting to his right, which can be a little bit worry going into open class on left-handed tracks. But he could be a real kind of live one and a series contender for the King George, which will be an exciting clash against the likes of Brave Man's Game. And hopefully a couple of nice of those Irish horses come over and give us a proper festive smash up. But keep the do not kind of throw this horse out, given the man that trains him. He's a proper horse. I really like him.
Trevor says Real Whacker could be a Ryanair horse. That race always suits front runners.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. He's got pace to burn, this fella. He's a really classy animal. I agree. He's probably one that you could bet on the exchange, maybe for the Ryanair, and hope he wins a few races and maybe kind of at least kind of get your stake back so you don't lose anything if connections decide to go that way. Anti-post betting on Matchbook and on the exchange, I think, is a very good way to go, because if horses do have a good season, you can obviously at least get your stake back for races so you don't lose.
Steve Jones, your 3.
Well, I'm going to start with the horse that you put up for Novice Chase, which is Gian Vinco. For all the reasons you said, unbeaten in 3 starts. Lucinda Russell, another stable that could take another step forward. I know that she's been had quality horses, including the Grand National winner a couple of times. So I think this one might be very exciting. Gianvinco, for what you say, nephew of Rocky Creek and Talmasini, like you said, got the pedigree to jump faces as well. And the other 2, Sageburg County, who didn't win over hurdles for Warren Greatrex, only rated 106 when going over fences, but I was really impressed with the way that he won that race at Market Racing in May on Chase debut, that handicap. And I think he's one that can go through the grades when he returns. It looks a natural over fences, and I think that one will pick up a few races at a slightly lower level than most of the horses that we've been talking about. And the other horse I like, who I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I put up in this podcast last year, is Collector's Item, who won a couple of times over hurdles. Surprisingly, he was quick enough to win at the Chepstow meeting coming up over 2 miles, and then won at Kempton over 3, and was just short-headed by a horse of Paul Nichols's called Making Your Mind Up in what looked a pretty hot race, a Grade 2 at Haydock over 3 in February. A horse that switched to fences, I think, is got potential to do really well for John Joe O'Neill. So, yeah, Sageburg County and Collector's Item, and underlining your thoughts on Giovinco.
And Matt Toombs.
2 of my 3 others were mentioned in last week's Jumpers to Follow. Don McLean put up Captain Combi, who's well back from 8.5 the Coral Cup. Travelled well for a long way on bad ground. Dusty She's consistently said he doesn't like. Real eye catch the other day in the Grade 3 Like a Butterfly novice chase at Tipperary. Ridden from off the pace for much of the race after the early exchanges. Manner of a horse struggling to go the gallop. The really fast horse in 4-time Matheson hurdle winner Sharjah. Looked to finish with plenty of running left with a respectful 12-length second. So he's one for the tracker, as I suspect he'll be primed for a Grade 3 handicap chase later in the season on decent ground. Don surmised the big handicap might be over staying trips. I'm open-minded, but that's my hunch. Trip 2. And Dan Overall put up Look Away, explaining that his form from last season could be excused as Neil King's horses run the weather for much of the season. In the 8 months from July last year to March this, his runs were 4 from 102. And Look Away ran 3 ordinary races over hurdles in that time. Neil's horses bounced back to form late spring, early summer. Look Away won 2 weak hurdle races at Uttoxeter in May. Because they were poor contests, he's got a mark of 122. As Dan said, they've got lots of options with him, but whether he's hurdling or chasing, he could easily run up a sequence starting off such a low mark, given the ability he showed when winning the Grade 2 bumper at Aintree. So there are a couple for the handicap route. The other one for conditions races, Grange Clare West. This time last year, he's one of the big buzz horses at Clasutton in the novice hurdling division. Willie said he thought he could be one of the outstanding staying novice hurdlers of the season. He was coughing when below par in the 2 mile 4 Grade 1 at Nason early January, seemingly not over that when again disappointing in the 2 mile 6 race at the Dublin Racing Festival, and didn't run again until Punchestown. He won what's often award winners have won there over 2.5. Looked a decent renewal again, mid-130s horses taking him on. And despite being free, he won easily. Travelled really well again, just kept galloping. The manner of a classy, thorough stayer. Willie said he's every inch a chaser. Rising 8, he'll presumably go over fences this season. It's early days to be playing Mullins bingo, but Willie doesn't have an obvious one for the not quite 4 miler, and it wouldn't surprise me if Patrick was in his ear trying to get into a Grange Clare West at it.
All right, that has us done and dusted. You did put up Collector's Item last year, Steve Jones. That's confirmation. I put up. I put up the future Galway Plate winner. Happy days. What else do we have in there? Statler, San Felicien, DC, El Fabiolo, Galvin Grand National. Steve, you had Statler and Collector's Items. Sam had Poetic Music. Banbridge could talk about it. James would get there. We are. Vorsley, I had. He was useless. I also had Between Waters as my dark horse. She ran once and was basically last. Shite. What else do we have? Steve, bit of Poetic Music one way or another. Oh, these were good times. Good times. We're hoping to get DC back on the podcast soon enough as well, but watch this space. It might not be possible. Okay. Let's bring in some of the comments. First of all, Trevor, I hope that's answered your question about handicappers, because we put a few in there. You also said, big shout out to Matt. Unbelievable amount of winners on your Cheltenham Handicap podcast. That is very true. Great stuff, Matt Toombs. There were bundles of winners in there. Tissue prices, back to your question. First of all, I really want to get the guys' thoughts on Lucia targets. Does anybody have an idea on Lucia, the mare? No? Okay, good.
Jerry Fielden, maybe?
Yeah. What happened? She ran disappointingly at Cheltenham. What did she do at Aintree? I can't even remember. She win it? No, she didn't win at Aintree.
Did she run disappointingly at Cheltenham? Any horse that gets beat at Cheltenham, they seem to think, oh, he's disappointed. She finished 4th. She was Antipo's favourite, Steve. Yeah, of course she was, because what she'd done beforehand. But that doesn't mean she ran bad, does it?
No, but disappointing.
I'm not convinced that the ground was totally what I know she'd won bumpers in testing ground. I'm not sure that the soft ground was ideal. She was a bit keen, and after what was her fourth race of the season, and she'd been in that Cheltenham race to finish third at Aintree in that Grade 1 against the lads was no disgrace either. I don't know if you say a horse gets beaten is disappointing, then you're going to be saying it an awful lot.
I think if a horse goes off at 2.5 for a Cheltenham race and finishes fourth,
but
I think you're allowed.
But was she too short anyway in the betting?
Yeah,
I would have said so.
Maybe.
I think
but
it's
disappointing is conditions against market expectations, isn't it? And if she's 2.5 favourite.
I'll give you a ring every night this year and make sure you're not disappointed with life every night.
If you're ringing me, I won't be disappointed, Steve. Could Galopin Des Champs and Jerry Colon clash in Ireland before the Gold Cup?
Yeah, every chance, wouldn't there?
They should be clashing at Leopardstown, shouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, particularly now that the John Durkin has been moved forward from December to November, which is where Willie likes to start horses like Galopin Des Champs. That ought to tee him up nicely into the Savills Chase, where I imagine Jerry Colon could well go.
We had a question on social media. Isn't it the case that Galopin Des Champs broke in the Gold Cup?
Yeah, I'll be worried about that.
Really?
Yeah, fast-run Gold Cups like that, and Brave Man's Game, possibly even more so because he had the harder race. Yeah, often they go on to Punchestown, they're fine, and then it's next season you see it, and those two were both beaten by Fast or Slow at Punchestown. So that's why I wouldn't be playing the Gold Cup market at the moment. If there might be native river types who can have an incredibly hard race in the Gold Cup and just keep going for another 2 or 3 seasons. But a lot of horses are never the same again after a hard-run Gold Cup.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, what I would say is Galopin Des Champs still quite young, isn't he? Hopefully he's got strengthening up to do. And I think with Brave Man's Game, even though he improved again last year physically, I think he could get actually a little bit stronger again. So, you never really know, do you? But as Matt pointed out, that kind of can be a race that leaves a little bit of a mark on a horse because it's just such a grueling event. But let's hope they do come back at their best because you can never have enough stars in the game. So
absolutely, and I reckon that was the best Gold Cup for some years. So I really hope the two of them have bounced back this season.
This is Galopin Des Champs, of course, who won the Gold Cup and then ran disappointingly at Punchestown, or as Steve would say, he ran really well to finish second. What else we got? Unanswered is a well-handicapped Martin horse. Unanswered don't know much about. He won at Cheltenham in early season, I think. Anyone? Tony Martin horse. They're all well-handicapped, aren't they?
Hard stable to catch right.
Still well handicapped after that Potemps romp.
Yeah. Now, Global also says Steve's raging. He's not. He's fine. He's fine.
I'm never raging.
He can't rage, Steve, except if you run him out of cricket, then he's raging.
Then he's just resigned to the fact that you're a moron.
Liam says, I know you shouldn't compare times from different days, but Midnight River won over further distance on softer ground the day after Jerry's win at Aintree. Is it possible that the RSA form is dog breath?
Well, I hope not, because I'm a big fan of the Real Whacker. The one thing I would say about that is, if I remember correctly, the last couple of seasons, Aintree has really dried out. Because they tend to overwater, don't they, on the first day, for obvious reasons, given everything that's going on, kind of politically around the game and whatnot. I would be a little bit worried about that, unless you do your own going allowances and you really, really trust yourself. I don't know. I'd be with Liam that I don't have the skill set to kind of compare times like that over kind of various days because I don't do my own going allowances. there's just too much racing. I'd rather just watch replays back and try and get an edge that way. There's just too much racing to get it all done. So, but hopefully not, because as I say, I'm a big fan of the real record. I would give Braun a little bit of a mention. He was third in that in the Brown advisory this season as a 6-year-old, trained by Willie Mullins, obviously owned by Isaac Swade and Simon Minier. Maybe is there a shades of maybe Al Boum Photo about him? Although I know Al Boum Photo did fall in his Brown advisory, didn't he? But he's maybe one to keep an eye on, because I think physically, again, he's going to be a better horse this season.
All I'd say, Liam, is you shouldn't compare times from different days. That's all I would say.
That's it, yeah. You were right about me using about 40 words when I only need 5 before we went on air. Fair play.
Right, there we go. We've hit the hour. We're done. Matt Toombs, thank you. Declan Rix, thank you. Steve Jones, thank you very much. We will have a podcast for you towards the end of the week, Thursday afternoon, I think it is, looking at the weekend's racing. Insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all the best bets for the season, or tracker horses to follow for this National Hunt Season version 2 podcast. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.